I'd like to discuss with you in the next 15 minutes on the power of fasting and prayer. The power of fasting and prayer. One of the things that fasting does in the life of a believer is that it releases power to destroy your enemies. Whether you like it or not, there are enemies everywhere. There are enemies everywhere. We have three major categories of enemy. Number one, enemies what we call household enemies. Enemies that are within. These are enemies that includes our brothers, our sisters, our daddies, our mommies, our children, our parents. Jesus talking in the book of Matthew chapter number 10. He said, a man's foes shall be they of his own household. So we have enemies that comes from within. Then we have enemies that come from outside. Human agents of darkness who are not happy with what God is doing in your life. Human agents of darkness who have told themselves that you are not qualified to be blessed. Human agents of darkness who have said whatever thing that is going on in your life, you are not qualified to experience or enjoy it. But the word of God says that they are enemies. And then the third set of the enemy is what we call spiritual enemies. These are Satan and his demons. So we have three main categories of enemies. Enemies within, enemies without, and spiritual enemies. I repeat them again. Enemies within, enemies without, and spiritual enemies. When you have these three categories of enemies fighting your life, fasting is what you need to release the power to conquer such enemies. In the book of Esther, chapter number 7, and I'm going to read verses 6, 7, and verse 10. Esther, verses chapter number 7, 6, 7, and 10. And Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king, arising from his banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther, the queen. For he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. 10. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. They fasted for 3 days. You will know the story. It's concerning Esther, Mordecai, and the Jews. When they were in Babylon, the Bible said that this wicked man, Haman, he made a very wonderful revelation through his evil acts. Why did I say they are wonderful? They are wonderful because the kind of things he did revealed to us how our enemies operate. The Bible said he did 3 things. Number 1, he went and paid money to satanic altars. He went and paid money to satanic altars. One of the first things that the enemies will do when they want to catch you is to go to evil altars, if you like, satanic altars, and make sacrifices. And that is the same step that heaven also uses. When Jesus was born, when he was 8 days, his parents were asked to bring things, animal, turtle, dove, and all that, to the altar of God as a sacrifice. In the presence of God, there is need for sacrifice to release the blessings of God. In also the presence of Lucifer, there is need to release sacrifice to curse whoever he wants to curse. Generally speaking, in the spirit realm, sacrifice is the language that they hear. The only language that the spirit realm or the spirit entities understand is sacrifice. So Haman, the first thing he did was to make sacrifice to be able to buy the spirit to fight Esther, Mordecai, and the Jews. The second thing that Haman did was that he brought in the altar. He brought in the sorcerers. He brought in the magicians. He brought in those sorcerers, those native witch doctors to his house. And he built a boys' quarter in his house and quartered them for 1 year. The Bible said, day after day, minutes after minutes, they were casting pour. They were pouring libation. They were hitting their hand on the ground. And they were cursing the king. They were cursing Mordecai until the day that they saw in the spirit realm that they have gotten the heart of the king. Then they struck. They went to the king and said, King, sign for us that we are going to kill your wife, your children, and your in-laws. Because they have already diabolically manipulated the king's heart. So the king signed without knowing what he was signing. Ordinarily, the king will read it, understand it before he signs. But because he was jazzed, because there was a diabolical cast of manipulation on him, he did not read it, and he signed that his own wife, his children will be killed. Power of diabolical manipulation. The third thing that Haman did was that he went to execute what his oracle have told him. It is one thing for you to sit down and make sacrifice. It's yet another thing for you to step and confirm the works of your sacrifice. That's why unbelievers are smarter than us. When you give an unbeliever juju or charm, the unbeliever will not sit down and say, what if it does not work? They go all out to do it. But when you tell a believer, move in the name of Jesus, he says, what if it does not work? And Haman moved out with the charm that was given to him, and he was able to subdue the king and subdued everybody. But it took Esther and Mordecai only 3 days fasting. What Haman did for 1 year was scattered by 3 days fasting. And look at you. In your generation, you did not fast for 3 days. You fasted for 40 conscious, calculated, numbered calendar days. What will Satan do? I declare to everyone, every enemy of your father's house, every enemy of your mother's house, every enemy of your destiny, you will subdue them today. If your amen is louder, your testimony will be the loudest. Number 2, the power of fasting. Fasting brings total restoration. So many of us lost a lot of things last year. Some lost their beloved ones. Some lost businesses. Some lost opportunities. Some churches, ministries lost members. But you have fasted. And when you fast, you release power that will bring back what you have lost. In Esther chapter number 8, the position that was made for Mordecai, he lost it to Haman. Do you know why he lost it to Haman? He lost it to Haman because Haman was a witch doctor. And he brought other witch doctors who were working against him. But Mordecai was sleeping. Anytime a child of God decides to sleep spiritually, you lose everything that is meant for you. That's why the Bible said, pray without ceasing. The second thing is this: anytime a believer who is walking in the will of God diverts and goes to consult oracles, that particular believer will lose whatever it is that God has given to him. One of the things that happened to some powerful men I know, even when prophecies had gone ahead of them, that they are going to be this, they are going to be this. Anytime they remove their eyes from God, the serpent strikes them. If you recall in the wilderness, when the serpent was biting them and they were dying, God said to Moses, I want you to make artificial serpent called a brazen serpent. Use a wood, lift it up on top of the wilderness. Anybody that is being bitten by the snake that looks and sees the brazen serpent will live. But if you remove your eyes from the brazen serpent, you will die. That's what was a prophetic demonstration of what is to come. Jesus, who was going to be hung on the cross of Calvary, the Bible said that anybody that looks unto him will be saved. Anyone that looks up to Jesus. That's why the book of Hebrews says, looking unto Jesus, who is the author and finisher of our faith. Now, Mordecai began to sleep. Mordecai took his spiritual life for granted. That's how Haman took his position. But when he went back and fasted and prayed, every single thing the enemy took from him for 10 years, he recovered in one day. Check the scriptures. After fasting for 3 days, Esther went and called for party. First party, second party, third party, Esther reported. The same day they reported, the same day was the position of Mordecai returned. Esther chapter number 8, verse 1. He said, on that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. For the first time, Mordecai came before the king. Some powers stopped him from being manifested. They used charm to stop his in-law from seeing him. Do you know what I'm talking about? For your in-law to be Mr. President and you are suffering. For your in-law, onye lo nwage we awo Buhari gi jese bekwere owo me mba obaraka, something is behind it. But after fasting and prayer, aka jingozia Jehovah bapia ya nataya. Is somebody hearing what I'm saying? After 3 days fasting and prayer, the house of Haman was given to Esther. Everything that he had was restored back. Why? Because that particular quarter was made for the king's wife, but he used his charm and colonized that quarter. But when the charm expired, the Bible said that what was meant to Esther was restored back to her. Ikune kasakata. Because you have fasted, every charm that they are using to manipulate your destiny helpers, they are expiring today. Lift your hands and shout. Every charm used on my destiny helpers, expire now. Sit down. Number 3. Fasting gives you total authority to control your territory. Fasting gives you total authority to control your territory. Let me start by saying to you that if you live in the world and only face the world, you are of all men most miserable. We live in the world, but we control the world from the spirit realm. You need to understand that man is a human, but created to operate in dual nature. Man is human. Man is human, but created to operate in dual nature. Man is human, but created to operate in dual nature. What do you mean, Pastor Larry? When God created man a spirit. But when God was making man, God made man a human. These are two different things. You create something out of nothing. You make something out of something. When God created man, he created him, both male and female, created he them. Genesis chapter 1, 26 and 27. They were existing in the spirit realm. So when God wanted to bring them from the spirit realm to the human realm, what did he do? He bent down and built a house, and now vomited what was what was existing in the spirit realm through his breath. God said to what he molded, and Adam entered into that clay and he became a living being. So Adam was existing somewhere, and by the breath of God, Adam came to the physical realm. So everything that is existing in the spiritual realm exists by the breath of God. Please take that one home. If there is anything that is happening in the spirit realm, and you want to bring that spirit realm to the physical realm, you bring it via breaths. Words are breaths. Words are breaths. Not just the literal breath, but speak words in the air. Every word you speak, you release the breath of God. And what is existing in the spirit realm will begin to exist in the natural. That's why all the occultists, what they do is to talk. They speak. Whenever they are in their coven, they don't stop talking. That's why when you see mad people, they are always talking. If they keep quiet, to see them singing and charming. When you do, you are bringing breath from your nostrils. And whatever thing that is in the spirit realm, by your breath, they come to the natural realm. So the breath of God and the breath of men are the channel through which spiritual entities come to physical health. I want you to understand that. So this was exactly what God did. He brought Adam through his breath, and Adam started existing. So Adam had dual nature, the spirit realm and the human realm. So every human being operates in these two realms, the realm of the spirit and the realm of the flesh. So you need to understand that for everything that you are doing to happen, you must enact it in the spirit realm and bring it in the physical. If you only live in the physical, you can never get anything. Everything must be created twice before it would be established. Everything must be created twice before it is established. As it is in heaven, so shall it be on earth. If you leave heaven realm, it will not be on earth. It must come from the heaven realm and you pull it down to earth by the breath of your mouth. Put that one in your pocket. Now, what happened? The Bible said that this Haman, through spiritual powers, established his territory and began to control everybody. Remember, in the flesh, who is the king? The king is who? Ahasuerus. Hello? Who is the husband of Esther? King who? Who is in charge? King who? Ahasuerus. That was in the earthly realm. But in the spirit realm, Haman was higher than Ahasuerus. Haman was reigning in the spirit realm, not Ahasuerus. How? Because he knows how to sacrifice and to fast. He did 1 year fasting, invoking evil powers. So on the earth, everybody was looking at Ahasuerus as the ruler. But Ahasuerus was not the ruler. It was Haman who was ruling Ahasuerus, who is ruling the earth. So when you fast, you transit to the spiritual realm. You rise in the spirit and you begin to control your territory. Anywhere you live, anybody that can fast more than others is in charge of that territory. Somebody hear what I'm saying now? Anywhere you are, when you fast your body, you fatten your spirit. When you fast, or fasten your body if you like, you fatten the spirit. When you deprive your body of food, you have upgraded your spirit of power. When your body is weak, your spirit is strong. Because man lives in dual places. When you weaken your body, that was why after Jesus fasted, the first thing Satan wanted to do to subdue him in the earth realm was to bring him food. Command these stones to be bread. Had Jesus eaten that food, he will lose control over earth. Food is the first temptation that Satan uses. The moment you love food, you will become a spiritual dwarf until you die. Anytime Satan wants to mess a man's life up, he presents food. There are 3 dimensions of food. 1, physical food. 2, emotional food. 3, biological food. Please note these things down. I won't break down because I don't have time. Food of any sort, even if you are a married man and you fornicate emotional food every time, you sleep with your wife every time, you will weaken every kind of food, all sorts of food. If you are somebody that feeds on ego, you are going down. If you're somebody that loves meat, chin-chin, bread, Fanta, mineral, you remain a dwarf forever. When Jesus finished fasting for 40 days, the first thing Satan gave him was food. That's the first way to lure a man, pull you out of the spirit realm. The moment you test food, you leave the spirit realm and become human. When God wanted Jesus to operate in the spiritual, he led him from baptism to the wilderness. He said, go and wait for me 40 days. I want you to dwarf your body and increase your spirit. So when Haman fasted for 1 year, he became more powerful than Ahasuerus. That's what fasting can do. The more you fast, the more you grow. You grow, they grow. And what are you growing for? You are growing to control your territory. From today, anybody that is in charge of the territory, where your business is, where your family is, where your house is, I command you to control them. I don't like the way you're shouting your amen. Can you shout a louder amen? So, number one, fasting gives you power to destroy your enemy. Number two, fasting gives you power to restore whatever the enemy had taken away from you. And number three, fasting helps you to control your territory. Brothers and sisters, what occult men are doing in our generation is too much. And God is waiting for men and women who can fast. After Joshua prayed and fasted, he stood up and said, moon, stand still. Sun, stand still. They stood still. Go and check the antecedents of men who controlled and ruled their territory. They were men that fasted. They lived a fasted life. Jesus, number one. Every time, small thing will happen, he will withdraw himself and disappear. He'll be talking with his disciples. Small thing will happen, say, excuse me, I'm coming. He will go to the bush. Why is he always going there? Because he that fasts controls his territory. Jesus never for once lost control of his territory. He prayed to the point that anywhere he will arrive, they have announced him in the spirit and demons will wait for him there. The man that was mad by Gennesaret, the Bible said he lives in the tomb of the mountain. When Jesus was arriving through the sea, who told that man that Jesus was coming? The Bible said Jesus came quietly. He decided to disappear. Nobody knew he was coming. But before he came out of the boat, the demons were there, 10,000 demons. Oh boy, what do you do here now? This is our territory. What are you coming here to do now? How did they know? Because Jesus was operating through fasting in the spirit realm. That's how. Spirit is where you meet spirit. Spirit versus spirit. Jesus said, well, that's your business. Too bad. I've come to take over this territory. Get out of him now. And the Bible said that the demons went into pigs. And some went into some human beings. And they went to the village and they came and said, no, these demons, we want them. Go out of our territory. Go out of our territory. They rejected Jesus from their territory. Jesus wanted to liberate them. The madman kept them bound. They didn't understand. Jesus chased the demons out. But human beings who were, not everybody came. It was the occult men that were using the powers that say, no, when you come now, get quiet, enjoy here, get out of our territory. They know that he knows who they are. After today, anywhere you appear, demons will disappear. Christianity of lack of knowledge is stupidity. He said, my people, they are my people, but they perish. That's why somebody told me, can a born-again Christian be destroyed by demons? I said, yes. One faith preacher came to criticize me on radio. I said, I don't have any time. We are not quarreling. I don't need to exchange or join issues with you. So I go back to your Bible. Can a born-again Christian be possessed by demons? Yes. Can a born-again Christian be destroyed by demons? Yes. On one condition. My people perish for what? Lack. When you lack knowledge, they destroy you. It's clear in the Bible. It's clear. That's the only way demons can destroy. But when you know who you are, thank God for snatch, I know who I am. When you know who you are, Satan can't tempt you. So Jesus said, too bad for you, I am here. Get out of this territory. Because when two giants jam, the lesser giant will bow. We don't fast to waste our time. We fast to gain control in the spirit realm.